At this very moment, the sun is releasing more energy every second than humans could use in millions of years. Deep inside its core, nuclear reactions push outward constantly, without pause, without rest. And yet, every night, most of us sleep under something very different. The moon gives off no energy of its own. It produces no heat, no fire, no light. It simply reflects what reaches it, softly and quietly, then lets the rest pass by. That contrast is easy to overlook, because we're used to thinking of the sun as powerful and the moon as passive. But when you slow down and really look, something unexpected appears. The moon asks almost nothing of us. It doesn't demand attention, productivity, or reaction. It just stays. Science has measured this clearly. The sun's surface is nearly 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It changes constantly, sending out flares, storms, and waves of radiation. The moon, by contrast, changes very little. Its motion is steady, its light predictable, its presence familiar. That difference matters, especially to a tired mind. The sun represents activity, heat, and output. The moon represents reflection, rhythm, and rest. One drives time forward, the other marks it gently. You don't need to choose between them. Tonight is simply about noticing the contrast. You don't need to remember facts or hold comparisons in your head. You don't need to imagine distances or sizes. You can let the information arrive slowly, like moonlight through a window, without effort. In this video, we'll move through 77 gentle comparisons between the sun and the moon, energy and reflection, activity and rest, heat and cool light. Not to prove anything and not to declare a winner out loud, but to let your body and thoughts settle naturally as the differences unfold, one calm comparison at a time. Before we start, subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Now plug in your headphones, get comfortable, and dive into this amazing topic. The sun and the moon share the same sky, yet they live by completely different rules. The sun creates energy constantly, pushing light and heat outward in all directions, never stopping, never slowing down. Every second, deep inside the sun, energy is produced through intense internal processes that have continued for billions of years. This steady output is what warms Earth, drives weather, and keeps life moving. The moon, however, creates nothing of its own. It does not burn, glow, or generate heat. Instead, it receives light from the sun and reflects a small portion of it back toward us. This simple difference shapes how each one feels to the human mind. One demands distance and protection, while the other invites quiet observation. The sun's energy is powerful but overwhelming. We cannot look at it directly or stand close to it. The moon's reflected light is soft enough to rest beneath. This contrast offers relief. Reflection requires no effort. The moon does not work to shine. It accepts what arrives and releases it gently. That idea alone can calm the nervous system. In a world that often rewards output, production, and constant energy, the moon shows a different way of existing. It reminds us that value does not always come from creating something new. Sometimes it comes from receiving, holding, and returning what already exists. As this thought settles in, the mind can begin to loosen its grip on urgency and effort, allowing space for slower awareness and rest. One important scientific fact that deepens this contrast is how energy behaves at the source. The sun's surface temperature is nearly 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and its core is far hotter. This heat is not optional. It is the result of ongoing internal reactions that must continue or the sun would cease to exist. The moon has no such internal process. Its surface temperature depends almost entirely on whether it is facing the sun or turned away. During the lunar night, temperatures drop sharply, not because energy is lost, but because none is being produced. This dependence on reflection rather than creation creates a natural rhythm of light and darkness. For the listener, this rhythm feels gentler. The moon does not insist on constant brightness. It allows darkness without resistance. Another calming truth is that moonlight is not white. It is actually a muted gray-blue because the moon's surface reflects sunlight unevenly, absorbing much of the intensity. This filtering effect softens what reaches Earth. The moon takes something powerful and makes it manageable. That process can feel emotionally supportive. You do not have to face raw energy to benefit from it. You can experience it after it has been softened. As you imagine moonlight resting quietly on a landscape, notice how different it feels from daylight. Nothing demands attention. Shadows are gentle. The world feels slower. This is reflection in action, not as a concept, but as a physical reality that has shaped human nights for as long as we have existed. Another fascinating fact is that the moon reflects only about 12% of the sunlight that hits it. Most of the light is absorbed or scattered. What reaches Earth is just a small, softened portion. This explains why moonlight never warms the skin the way sunlight does. It carries information, not force. That difference matters deeply to the body. Sunlight triggers alertness, activity, and movement. Moonlight signals safety and rest. The human nervous system has evolved under this contrast. For thousands of years, daylight meant work and awareness, while moonlit nights allowed slowing down. The moon's reflective nature helped establish the idea that darkness is not danger, but permission. Another quiet truth is that the moon's brightness never increases on its own. It can only grow brighter as it reflects more sunlight during its phases. This removes unpredictability. The moon does not surprise us with sudden flares or bursts. Its changes are gradual and visible over days. That predictability helps the mind relax. You always know where the moon is headed. It will not rush forward. It will not skip ahead. It reflects slowly, patiently, and reliably. As you hold this idea, notice how different it feels from modern life, where energy is expected constantly. The moon offers an alternative pattern, one where presence matters more than output, and where receiving light can be enough without needing to produce anything new. The sun's energy travels directly outward, while the moon's light travels twice. Sunlight moves from the sun to the moon, then from the moon to Earth. This extra step softens it further. By the time moonlight reaches us, it has already been filtered by distance and reflection. That layered journey creates calm. Nothing arrives suddenly. Everything has passed through space, time, and surface before reaching your eyes. This process mirrors emotional reflection. When experiences are given time, they lose sharpness. They become easier to hold. Another scientific detail that supports this feeling is that moonlight does not interfere with human vision the way sunlight does. It allows pupils to remain relaxed rather than constricted. This physical response encourages a sense of ease. The body does not brace under moonlight. It opens gently. The moon never asks you to shield yourself. It offers light without demand. This is why people across cultures have associated the moon with rest, dreaming, and quiet awareness. Not because of myth, but because of how reflection actually works. The moon takes energy that would otherwise overwhelm and returns it in a form that can be safely received. As you imagine moonlight touching the ground, notice how it reveals shapes without insisting on detail. Nothing is fully exposed. Everything is allowed to remain partially hidden. That softness gives the mind permission to stop analyzing and simply observe. Another calming scientific truth is that the moon's reflective role never changes. It has no phases where it suddenly produces energy. Even during a full moon, when it appears brightest, it is still only reflecting sunlight. This consistency creates trust. The moon will never behave differently than expected. The sun, by contrast, produces solar flares, storms, and bursts of radiation that can disrupt technology and affect Earth. Its energy is essential but demanding. The moon's reflection is supportive without intrusion. This difference is felt intuitively. People rarely feel stressed by moonlight, but prolonged sunlight can exhaust the body and mind. Reflection offers balance. It allows engagement without intensity. Another interesting fact is that the moon's surface is covered in fine dust that scatters light in many directions, further reducing glare. This scattering creates the moon's soft glow rather than a sharp shine. That glow feels emotionally safe. It does not call for action. It does not demand response. As you imagine this dust-covered surface quietly reflecting light into space, notice how passive the process feels. Nothing is forced. The moon does not hold onto energy or try to amplify it. It releases what it can and lets the rest go. This behavior models a gentler way of being, where receiving and releasing happen naturally, without tension or effort, allowing the mind to follow that same pattern. As this contrast between energy and reflection continues to unfold, the emotional difference becomes clearer. The sun represents effort, creation, and outward motion. The moon represents acceptance, return, and inward ease. One final scientific detail reinforces this feeling. The moon's reflective light is strong enough to see by, but not strong enough to erase the stars. Under moonlight, the wider sky remains visible. Under sunlight, stars disappear. Reflection allows space for other things to exist. Creation often dominates. The moon never takes over the sky. It shares it. That sharing feels generous. The moon does not compete for attention. It offers presence without control. As you imagine lying beneath a moonlit sky, notice how the light does not overwhelm your vision or thoughts. It supports awareness without crowding it. This is the quiet gift of reflection. It gives enough without taking too much. The body responds by slowing. The mind follows. Nothing needs to be produced in this moment. Nothing needs to be solved. The moon has already done its work simply by reflecting what was given to it. That simple act can be enough for now, allowing the story to continue forward gently, carried by the calm difference between creating energy and letting it return in softened form, without effort, without demand, and without the need to arrive anywhere quickly. The sun is never still. Deep inside it, energy is constantly being produced, moved, and released. Hot material rises, cooler material sinks, and massive flows of plasma churn endlessly beneath the surface. This motion never pauses. Even when the sun looks calm from Earth, it is always active, always shifting. One scientific fact is that the sun completes a full rotation at different speeds depending on latitude, meaning its equator moves faster than its poles. This uneven motion creates constant internal change. For the listener, this kind of activity can feel tiring to imagine. There is no repetition that allows rest. Nothing returns to the same place in the same way. The moon exists differently. It follows a single, repeating path around Earth, completing one orbit roughly every 27 days. This movement does not vary. It does not speed up or slow down unexpectedly. Each orbit follows the last with quiet precision. This predictability is emotionally soothing. The moon does not reinvent itself each cycle. It repeats. As you imagine the moon moving steadily through space, notice how the idea feels settled. Nothing competes for attention. Nothing accelerates. Motion exists, but it is familiar. The body responds to familiarity with calm. Predictable motion reduces the need for vigilance. The moon's steady orbit creates a rhythm that does not demand adjustment. It simply continues, allowing the mind to rest within something that has worked the same way for billions of years. Another important difference between the sun and the moon lies in how change shows itself. On the sun, change is constant and unavoidable. Dark sunspots appear and disappear. Bright flares erupt and fade. Magnetic fields twist and snap. These events happen whether we observe them or not. One scientific fact is that solar activity follows cycles of roughly 11 years, during which the sun becomes more or less active. Even this cycle is marked by peaks and shifts rather than smooth repetition. For the listener, this can feel restless. Activity rises and falls without warning. The moon, by contrast, changes in a way that is slow, visible, and expected. Its phases unfold over a month in a reliable pattern that humans have tracked for thousands of years. New moon becomes crescent, crescent becomes half, half becomes full, then returns again. Nothing surprises. Another calming fact is that the moon always keeps the same face toward Earth, a result of tidal locking. This means the same patterns remain visible night after night. Familiarity builds over time. As you picture the moon's steady presence, notice how little effort it takes to anticipate what comes next. The mind does not need to prepare for disruption. The moon's motion does not escalate. It repeats calmly. This repetition creates trust. When systems behave predictably, the nervous system relaxes. The moon offers motion without uncertainty, allowing awareness to drift without needing to track constant change or brace for sudden shifts. The sun's constant motion also creates pressure on everything around it. Its energy pushes outward, affecting space, planets, and even Earth's atmosphere. One scientific fact is that streams of charged particles from the sun travel through the solar system continuously, shaping magnetic fields and influencing weather in space. This outward force never rests. It fills space with activity. The moon does not project influence in this way. Its movement is contained within its orbit. Gravity holds it gently in place, allowing it to move without disturbance. Another calming truth is that the moon's orbit is nearly circular, meaning its distance from Earth changes only slightly. This stability keeps tides and light patterns consistent. For the listener, this gentle regularity feels grounding. The moon does not impose itself. It participates quietly. As you imagine this steady orbital path repeating again and again, notice how the idea removes urgency. Motion does not equal demand. Movement does not require reaction. The moon does not rush forward or pull away dramatically. It remains within a narrow range, allowing life on Earth to adapt easily. This reliability has shaped human calendars, sleep patterns, and cultural rhythms. The moon's predictable motion gave people a way to measure time without anxiety. Time became something that returned rather than something that ran out. Holding this image can help the mind release its sense of being chased, replacing it with the feeling of being carried forward gently. Another scientific detail that reinforces this contrast is how long each body takes to complete its motion. The sun takes about 27 days to rotate at its equator, yet because it is made of gas, no single surface completes a rotation together. This creates internal shear and tension. Nothing moves as one. The moon, however, completes its rotation and orbit in the same amount of time, always keeping its orientation stable. This unity creates calm. One movement supports another. Nothing pulls ahead or lags behind. For the listener, this harmony can feel deeply reassuring. Parts working together reduce strain. The moon's motion is shared and coordinated. As you imagine this synchronized movement, notice how it contrasts with the sun's layered activity. The moon does not contain competing flows. It follows a single rhythm. This simplicity allows it to remain unchanged for long periods. Another soothing fact is that the moon's orbit has remained stable for billions of years, slowly drifting outward but never breaking its pattern. This slow change happens at a pace too gentle to disrupt anything. The moon teaches that motion does not have to feel busy. It can be repetitive, supportive, and calm. This kind of motion invites rest rather than response. Awareness can follow the moon's path without effort, knowing exactly where it will be night after night, without surprises or demands. The emotional effect of predictable motion becomes clearer when we consider how humans respond to rhythm. The body relaxes when patterns repeat. Heartbeats, breathing, and walking all rely on steady cycles. The moon mirrors this natural preference. One scientific fact is that the moon's gravitational pull contributes to Earth's tides in a regular, repeating way. High tides and low tides follow the moon's position predictably. This repetition creates balance rather than disruption. The sun also affects tides, but its influence is secondary and less precise. The moon's motion creates a dependable pulse. For the listener, This pulse feels calming. It suggests that large systems can move without chaos. As you imagine tides rising and falling in time with the moon, notice how nothing feels rushed. Water responds slowly, steadily, and without stress. The moon does not command the ocean. It invites movement through presence alone. This influence without force feels emotionally safe. Predictable motion allows adjustment without fear. The moon's path gives life time to respond. Unlike the sun's bursts of activity, which can overwhelm, the moon's steady cycle creates space for adaptation. This reinforces the idea that stability comes from repetition rather than intensity. The moon does not need to change to remain relevant. Its motion has meaning because it repeats. Holding this idea can help the mind settle into the comfort of knowing what comes next, releasing the need to monitor constant activity or prepare for disruption. As the contrast between constant activity and predictable motion continues, the moon's quiet role becomes more reassuring. The sun must constantly work to remain what it is. Its activity cannot pause. The moon requires no such effort. One final scientific fact is that the moon's orbit is maintained automatically by gravity, without fuel, adjustment, or control. Nothing corrects it. Nothing manages it. The system holds itself. For the listener, this can feel deeply comforting. Stability does not require supervision. Some rhythms sustain themselves naturally. As you imagine the moon continuing its path through space exactly as it always has, notice how the mind responds. There is nothing to fix, nothing to accelerate. Motion exists, but it does not demand participation. The moon moves so predictably that it becomes background rather than focus. This allows awareness to soften. When movement becomes familiar, it stops asking for attention. The moon offers this gift freely. It moves without interruption, without escalation, and without urgency. This steady presence allows the story to continue naturally, carried forward by repetition rather than effort, by rhythm rather than activity, and by the calm reassurance that not all motion needs to feel busy in order to endure. Heat from the sun is something the body instinctively reacts to. It pushes outward, demanding distance and adjustment. One scientific fact is that the sun's surface temperature is about 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to burn instantly at close range. This heat travels through space as energy that cannot be ignored. Earth survives only because of distance and atmosphere. The sun's warmth shapes life, but it also sets limits. Too close and nothing endures. For the listener, this kind of heat can feel demanding. It requires protection, shade, timing, and constant balance. The moon offers something different. Moonlight carries no heat of its own. Another scientific fact is that the moon does not produce light at all. It reflects sunlight without absorbing enough energy to warm its surface significantly. This reflected light arrives gently, without pressure. You can stand in it without shielding your skin or narrowing your eyes. As you imagine moonlight resting across the ground, notice how the body does not tense. There is no instinct to retreat. The light does not push. It allows closeness. This difference matters emotionally. Heat asks you to respond. Cool light allows you to remain. The moon shows that brightness does not need intensity. Light can exist without urgency, without force, and without discomfort, offering the mind a sense of safety that comes from presence rather than power. The sun's heat also creates movement everywhere it reaches. Warm air rises, cooler air sinks, and winds form as a result. One scientific fact is that most weather on Earth is driven directly by uneven solar heating across the planet's surface. Heat creates motion whether we want it or not. This constant activity keeps systems active but never truly still. For the listener, this can feel tiring to imagine. Heat rarely allows rest. It demands circulation and change. Moonlight, by contrast, does not stir the air. Another scientific fact is that moonlight lacks the energy needed to heat Earth's surface enough to cause air movement. Under moonlight, the atmosphere settles. Nights cool. Winds slow. As you imagine a landscape lit only by the moon, notice how quiet it feels. Leaves do not rustle from rising air. Surfaces release heat instead of absorbing it. This cooling invites stillness. The moon's light does not trigger reactions. It allows things to pause. This difference gently trains the nervous system to associate moonlight with calm. Light that rests creates space for rest. The moon does not change its surroundings. It reveals them softly. For the listener, this offers relief. Nothing needs to adapt. Nothing needs to shield itself. The world can simply remain as it is, illuminated without being altered, held in a calm glow that asks nothing in return. Another important contrast appears when we consider how humans have learned to approach each source. The sun has always required caution. One scientific fact is that prolonged exposure to direct sunlight can damage skin and eyes, even at great distances. Protective behaviors developed naturally. Shade, shelter, and timing became necessary. The moon never required these responses. Moonlight has no known harmful effects. It does not burn, blind, or overwhelm. For the listener, this difference feels deeply reassuring. Safety without effort allows relaxation. The moon can be looked at directly without harm. Its light does not force the eyes to squint or turn away. This creates a sense of welcome. As you imagine looking up at the moon, notice how the gaze can linger comfortably. There is no need to protect yourself. The light invites attention rather than resisting it. This openness builds trust. Over time, the mind associates moonlight with quiet observation rather than survival. Another scientific fact is that the moon reflects only about 12% of the sunlight that reaches it, which keeps its brightness soft and controlled. Nothing overwhelms the senses. This gentle illumination encourages slower thoughts. The body recognizes the difference between energy that demands adjustment and light that allows stillness. Moonlight becomes a signal to slow down, preparing both mind and body for rest without effort or instruction. The temperature difference between sun and moon also reinforces this emotional contrast. One scientific fact is that while the sun radiates enormous heat constantly, the moon's surface temperature depends entirely on exposure and absence. It becomes very hot in sunlight and extremely cold in darkness, yet its light never carries warmth to Earth. For the listener, this separation is comforting. Moonlight does not interfere with the body's internal balance. It does not raise temperature or increase alertness. Instead, it arrives as pure visibility without stimulation. This allows the nervous system to remain calm. The moon's light supports awareness without excitement. As you imagine moonlight spreading across a quiet space, notice how it does not energize or activate. It simply reveals. This is emotionally important. The brain can stay awake enough to observe while remaining relaxed enough to rest. The sun's heat keeps systems alert and active. Moonlight supports a state between awareness and sleep. This gentle balance is why moonlit environments often feel peaceful rather than productive. The moon does not call for action. It does not encourage movement. It allows presence without pressure. This difference helps the listener associate cool light with safety. Safety allows letting go. Letting go allows rest. The moon's light offers this without needing explanation, working quietly through familiarity and repetition rather than force. Cultural memory also reflects this difference between heat and light. Across history, the sun has symbolized labor, urgency, and exposure. The moon has symbolized rest, reflection, and quiet passage of time. One scientific fact beneath this symbolism is that human circadian rhythms respond more strongly to sunlight than moonlight. Sunlight signals activity and alertness. Moonlight does not disrupt sleep in the same way. For the listener, this reinforces trust in the moon's calm presence. The body recognizes the moon as safe for rest. As you imagine night settling under moonlight, notice how the world feels less demanding. There are fewer cues to act, fewer signals to prepare. The moon's light does not reset the body's clock. It allows it to wind down naturally. This is not accidental. It reflects how gentle light interacts differently with human biology. The sun pushes systems forward. The moon allows them to slow. This biological response supports the emotional narrative. Cool light becomes associated with safety because it does not interfere. It respects boundaries. The moon does not ask the body to do anything differently. It allows it to continue its natural rhythm toward rest. Holding this image can help the mind trust its own slowing pace, knowing that calm light has always accompanied rest across human history. As the contrast between pushing heat and resting light settles in, the moon's role becomes clearer. The sun must be managed. Distance, protection, and timing are required. The moon requires none of these. One final scientific fact is that moonlight is simply redirected sunlight, softened by reflection and distance. It arrives already filtered. For the listener, this filtering feels emotionally protective. Nothing arrives raw or overwhelming. The moon does not amplify. It reduces. It takes intensity and returns it gently. As you imagine moonlight continuing its quiet work night after night, notice how the idea allows the mind to loosen. Nothing needs to be done. Nothing needs to be resisted. The light does not push forward. It rests where it falls. This creates an environment where awareness can remain present without effort. The moon offers illumination without demand, visibility without urgency, and presence without pressure. This difference prepares the listener to move deeper into the comparisons ahead, already carrying the sense that cool light signals safety, stability, and rest, while heat remains something to respect from a distance, allowing the calm rhythm of the moon to guide the story forward naturally. The sun exists only by constant effort. At every moment, it must burn to remain what it is. One clear scientific fact is that the sun produces energy through nuclear fusion, forcing hydrogen atoms together to create helium, releasing enormous heat and light in the process. This reaction never pauses. It cannot slow down or rest without ceasing to be a star. The sun must continuously generate energy just to stay stable. For the listener, this idea can feel quietly exhausting to imagine. Existence there depends on output. Pressure is built in. The moon offers a different way of being. Another simple scientific fact is that the moon produces no light of its own at all. It does not generate energy. It does not burn. It receives light and reflects it back unchanged in nature, only softened by distance and surface. This difference carries emotional weight. The moon does not work to be seen. It simply responds. As you imagine moonlight touching the ground, notice how nothing is being spent or consumed. There is no fuel, no effort. The moon remains complete whether light reaches it or not. It does not strain to shine. It accepts what arrives and releases it gently. This idea introduces a calm truth. Presence does not require production. The moon shows that existing can be passive and still meaningful. Reflection alone can be enough. Nothing is forced. Nothing is depleted. The mirror does not need to become the source to matter. The sun's role as a source also creates inevitability. One scientific fact is that the sun loses mass every second as energy radiates outward into space. Though small relative to its size, this loss is constant and irreversible. Burning means consuming. Even stability comes at a cost. Over time, the sun will change because it must. For the listener, this introduces a subtle tension. Being the source requires giving something away. The moon avoids this entirely. It does not lose itself by reflecting light. Reflection costs nothing. Another scientific fact is that the moon's surface reflects sunlight without chemical change or energy loss of its own. It remains structurally the same whether illuminated or dark. This allows the moon to persist without depletion. As you imagine the moon moving through space, notice how nothing is being used up. It does not fade by shining. It does not weaken by being visible. This creates a feeling of emotional safety. You do not need to diminish yourself to be present. The moon shows a different model of existence. One was receiving and returning does not drain the self. Reflection allows continuity without exhaustion. This idea can gently ease the listener's mind. You can be visible without being consumed. You can exist without burning through yourself. The moon's calm presence offers reassurance that value does not require sacrifice, and that steady reflection can last longer than constant output. Another difference between source and mirror appears in how each interacts with its surroundings. One scientific fact is that the sun actively shapes everything near it through heat, radiation, and gravity. Planets respond continuously to its output. Atmospheres expand, contract, and move because of it. The sun cannot exist without influence. Its energy demands reaction. The moon does not impose change. Another scientific fact is that moonlight lacks the energy to significantly alter Earth's surface or atmosphere. It reveals without reshaping. For the listener, this difference feels gentle and safe. Being near the moon does not require adaptation. Nothing must adjust to survive its presence. The moon does not demand attention or response. It does not create urgency. As you imagine standing under moonlight, notice how nothing changes because of it. The air remains still. The temperature remains steady. The body does not need to prepare or shield itself. This emotional neutrality is important. The moon allows awareness without pressure. It lets things remain as they are. This reinforces the idea of presence without effort. The mirror does not act upon what it touches. It simply allows it to be seen. This can be deeply comforting. The moon shows that visibility does not require influence. You can be present without causing disturbance. You can illuminate without altering. This kind of quiet existence encourages rest because nothing needs to respond or adapt. Everything can remain settled. Time also behaves differently for a source than for a mirror. One scientific fact is that the sun's energy output changes slowly over billions of years as fuel is consumed. Its future is defined by eventual transformation. The sun must move toward something else. The moon does not. Another scientific fact is that the moon's reflective behavior has remained essentially the same for billions of years. It does not progress toward a different state by reflecting light. For the listener, this contrast feels calming. The moon does not hurry toward an end. It repeats the same quiet role night after night. This repetition creates emotional stability. Nothing is building toward collapse. Nothing is counting down. The moon does not exhaust itself by existing. As you imagine the moon rising again and again across ages, notice how the idea feels steady. The mirror does not age through effort. It simply remains. This offers a powerful sense of permission. You do not always need to move toward change. Some forms of existence are valuable precisely because they stay the same. The moon's long-term stability comes from its lack of internal struggle. It does not need to maintain itself through work. It simply follows its orbit and reflects what arrives. This simplicity is deeply restful. The listener can feel invited into that simplicity, where being present is enough, and continuity does not require striving. The difference between burning and mirroring also affects how each is experienced emotionally. The sun commands attention. Its brightness forces awareness. Looking directly at it is dangerous. One scientific fact is that direct observation of the sun can permanently damage human vision. The moon never demands that kind of caution. Another scientific fact is that moonlight can be observed directly without harm. This difference creates trust. The moon does not overwhelm the senses. It does not insist on focus. It allows gentle observation. For the listener, this builds emotional ease. The moon does not need to be handled carefully. It does not punish attention. It welcomes it. This reinforces the idea that reflection is safe. The moon does not compete for dominance. It exists quietly within awareness. As you imagine the moon hanging in the sky, notice how the gaze can rest there comfortably. There is no urgency to look away. No instinct to protect yourself. This physical response carries emotional meaning. The mirror invites presence without risk. The source demands respect and distance. The moon shows that visibility can coexist with safety. This supports relaxation. The nervous system can remain open instead of guarded. Reflection allows softness. Burning requires defense. The moon's gentle presence trains the mind to stay instead of react, to observe instead of protect, and to rest instead of brace. As the contrast between source and mirror continues to settle, one final scientific fact quietly reinforces the theme. The moon reflects only a small fraction of the sunlight that reaches it, returning a softened version rather than the original intensity. It filters without effort. For the listener, this feels emotionally protective. The moon does not amplify what it receives. It reduces it. It offers light without excess. As you imagine moonlight continuing its slow, dependable rhythm, notice how nothing is being produced, consumed, or strained. The moon remains complete whether illuminated or not. This introduces a gentle truth. You do not need to be the source to matter. You do not need to burn to be present. Reflection can carry meaning, stability, and comfort without effort. The moon exists as it is, night after night, returning what arrives without changing itself. This idea allows the mind to rest. Nothing needs to be generated. Nothing needs to be proven. Presence alone is enough to continue, carried quietly forward by rhythm rather than force, as the calm comparison deepens and the story moves onward naturally without asking anything more. Sunlight carries instruction. One clear scientific fact is that exposure to sunlight suppresses melatonin, the hormone responsible for signaling rest in the human body. When sunlight reaches the eyes, the brain receives a message that it is time to be alert, active, and responsive. This response is automatic. The body does not choose it. Daylight increases heart rate, raises body temperature, and prepares muscles for movement. For the listener, this creates a subtle sense of pressure. Even gentle daylight asks something of us. It invites productivity, awareness, and engagement with the world. The moon does not send this signal. Another scientific fact is that moonlight is far too dim to meaningfully suppress melatonin. It allows the body's natural rhythm to continue uninterrupted. This difference matters deeply. Moonlight does not instruct the body to act. It gives permission to slow down. As you imagine moonlight resting across a quiet landscape, notice how nothing in the body needs to respond. Breathing can remain slow. Muscles can soften. Awareness does not sharpen. The moon does not demand readiness. It allows rest. This contrast introduces a gentle emotional shift. Daylight organizes time around effort. Moonlight releases time from obligation. The moon does not tell you what to do next. It does not push the nervous system forward. It simply remains, creating space where nothing is required, and where slowing down feels natural rather than resisted. Daytime light also shapes behavior beyond the body. One scientific fact is that human circadian rhythms are synchronized primarily by sunlight, not artificial light or temperature. Daylight sets the internal clock that governs sleep, digestion, and alertness. This creates structure, but also expectation. The day has purpose. Tasks gather there. Nighttime operates differently. Another scientific fact is that the absence of strong light allows circadian rhythms to shift toward repair, memory consolidation, and rest. Moonlight does not interrupt this process. It coexists with it. For the listener, this creates emotional relief. Night does not ask for performance. It supports restoration. As you imagine the world under moonlight, notice how activity decreases naturally. Sounds soften. Movement slows. Even animals respond differently. Many species reduce activity at night, conserving energy. This pattern is ancient and shared. The moon has accompanied rest for as long as life has existed on Earth. It has never required response. It has never forced adaptation. Moonlight reveals without activating. This difference is subtle but powerful. Daylight organizes life outward. Moonlight turns awareness inward. It allows the mind to disengage from planning and monitoring. Under moonlight, nothing needs to be solved. Nothing needs to be completed. The moon creates a boundary around effort, signaling that it is safe to pause, to stop producing, and to exist without purpose beyond rest. The sun's presence also defines urgency through visibility. One scientific fact is that bright light increases visual clarity, contrast, and depth perception. This makes movement easier and encourages action. The world becomes navigable and demanding. The moon does the opposite. Another scientific fact is that moonlight reduces contrast and detail, softening edges and limiting clarity. For the listener, this feels calming. When the world is less defined, it asks less of attention. The mind does not need to track detail or anticipate movement. Moonlight lowers informational demand. This is important for rest. Sharp environments require sharp awareness. Soft environments allow awareness to relax. As you imagine walking under moonlight, notice how the landscape becomes suggestion rather than instruction. Shapes exist without insisting on interpretation. Nothing jumps forward. This visual softness mirrors emotional softness. There is no pressure to respond quickly. The moon does not sharpen reality. It blurs it gently. This allows the nervous system to disengage from constant scanning. Moonlight creates permission to be less precise, less alert, less involved. These visual quiet supports mental quiet. The sun brings clarity that demands engagement. The moon offers ambiguity that welcomes rest. In moonlight, it is acceptable not to see everything clearly. Nothing important is approaching. Nothing requires immediate understanding. The world can remain partially unknown without consequence, and that uncertainty feels safe rather than threatening. Daytime also introduces direction. One scientific fact is that sunlight creates clear shadows that define orientation, time of day, and movement. The sun tells us where we are and where we are going. Moonlight removes that guidance. Shadows soften or disappear. Time becomes less defined. For the listener, this absence of direction feels relieving. Without clear markers, there is no destination. The night does not need progress. Another scientific fact is that human activity levels naturally decline after sunset, even in modern environments, as biological systems prepare for rest. Moonlight does not reverse this trend. It supports it. The moon does not point forward. It does not signal deadlines or beginnings. It holds time open. As you imagine hours passing under moonlight, notice how the concept of schedule loosens. There is no need to measure. Nothing is late. Nothing is early. This emotional spaciousness allows thoughts to drift rather than organize. The moon does not guide you toward achievement. It allows you to remain where you are. This is nighttime permission. You are allowed to stop moving forward. You are allowed to rest without justification. Moonlight carries no instruction except stillness. It does not mark progress. It does not reward effort. It simply accompanies the quiet passage of time, allowing the body and mind to release direction and settle into presence without expectation. The contrast between day and night also appears in sound and temperature. One scientific fact is that daytime warmth increases air movement, creating wind, convection, and noise. Heat drives motion. Night cools the surface, reducing air movement and sound. The moon contributes to this cooling indirectly by appearing during times when solar heat has withdrawn. For the listener, this change feels soothing. Cooler temperatures signal rest. Muscles release. Breathing slows. Another scientific fact is that lower nighttime temperatures improve sleep quality by supporting the body's natural drop in core temperature. Moonlight does not interfere with this process. It accompanies it gently. As you imagine the quiet of night under the moon, notice how sound fades. Activity recedes. The environment becomes less demanding. There is no competition for attention. Nothing calls out. The moon does not add noise. It does not create movement. It allows the world to settle into stillness. This reinforces emotional permission. Rest is not laziness here. It is alignment. The moon supports the body's natural transition away from effort. It does not resist it. This partnership between night, coolness, and quiet creates safety. The listener can trust that slowing down is appropriate. The world has slowed too. Everything is moving together into rest without pressure or expectation. As nighttime permission deepens, one final scientific fact settles gently into place. Human sleep patterns evolved under cycles of sunlight and moonlight long before artificial light existed. The body recognizes the moon as part of rest, not interruption. For the listener, this creates trust. Relaxation is not learned. It is remembered. The moon has always accompanied rest. It has never required response. It does not increase alertness. It does not accelerate thought. It allows awareness to drift naturally toward stillness. As you imagine the moon continuing its quiet path across the sky, notice how nothing changes because of it. The world remains calm. The body remains safe. There is no call to action, only permission to slow, to listen without effort, and to remain present without needing to do anything at all, as the gentle contrast continues to unfold naturally into deeper rest. The sun is never truly quiet. One clear scientific fact is that the sun constantly releases energy in the form of solar wind, radiation, and charged particles that move outward through space. This activity never stops. Even when nothing dramatic appears to be happening, the sun is emitting streams of particles that fill the solar system. Solar flares and storms are only the louder moments of a process that is always active. For the listener, this creates an image of constant output. Energy is always being released, always moving, always interacting. The moon exists in complete contrast. Another scientific fact is that the moon does not generate radiation of its own. It emits no solar wind, no energetic particles, no magnetic storms. It remains physically silent in space. This silence is not emptiness. It is stability. As you imagine the moon suspended in darkness, notice how nothing flows outward from it. Nothing pushes into surrounding space. The moon does not broadcast itself. It does not reach outward. This absence of energetic noise feels calming. The nervous system does not need to respond. There is nothing approaching, nothing fluctuating. The moon remains still while the sun constantly releases force. This contrast begins to settle emotionally. The sun fills space with motion and radiation. The moon offers a quiet presence that asks nothing of its surroundings, allowing awareness to rest without stimulation or demand. Solar activity also creates variability. One scientific fact is that solar radiation levels change depending on solar cycles, flares, and storms. These fluctuations affect satellites, communication systems, and even power grids on Earth. The sun's output is powerful but unpredictable. For the listener, unpredictability carries subtle tension. Systems must be monitored. Protection must be maintained. The moon introduces no such variability. Another scientific fact is that the moon's surface radiation environment remains relatively constant over time. It does not erupt. It does not surge. It does not surprise. As you imagine the moon's quiet presence, notice how steady it feels. Nothing spikes. Nothing intensifies. The environment remains unchanged hour after hour. This predictability is deeply soothing. The mind relaxes when it does not need to anticipate sudden change. Moonlight arrives gently and leaves gently. There are no bursts, no warnings. The moon's silence extends beyond sound into behavior. It follows the same path with remarkable consistency. This reliability allows the nervous system to settle. Nothing needs to be tracked. Nothing needs defense. The moon does not require shielding. It does not threaten disruption. Holding this image can ease internal vigilance. Silence here is not absence. It is reassurance. The moon shows that a presence can remain meaningful without generating constant signals. allowing rest to exist without interruption. The sun's energy also carries physical impact. One scientific fact is that solar radiation can damage biological tissue and electronic systems without protection. Life on Earth survives because the atmosphere and magnetic field absorb and deflect much of this energy. This constant shielding effort is necessary. For the listener, this introduces a sense of effort. Protection is required. The moon does not impose this burden. Another scientific fact is that moonlight is reflected sunlight that has lost most of its energy. It arrives cool, diluted, and harmless. It does not heat skin. It does not damage cells. It does not require defense. As you imagine moonlight resting across a quiet surface, notice how safe it feels. There is no need to shield or retreat. The body can remain open. This difference shapes emotional response. The sun commands distance. The moon allows closeness. Moonlight can touch without consequence. This gentle interaction reduces alertness. The nervous system recognizes safety. Nothing harmful arrives. Nothing needs to be managed. The moon offers presence without pressure. It allows the environment to remain calm and accessible. This is emotional quiet. Stimulation decreases. Awareness can soften. The moon's silence is not empty. It is protective in its gentleness, allowing rest without effort or vigilance. Solar storms also introduce noise beyond visibility. One scientific fact is that solar activity produces electromagnetic interference that affects radio signals and communication systems. This invisible noise travels across space, interacting constantly. The sun fills space with information and disturbance. The moon does not. Another scientific fact is that the moon has no significant magnetic field and produces no electromagnetic disturbances of its own. Space around the moon remains quiet and undisturbed. For the listener, this absence feels deeply calming. Nothing interferes. Nothing interrupts. The environment remains clear and still. As you imagine floating near the moon, notice how nothing hums or pulses. There is no background activity. The silence feels complete. This quiet allows the mind to slow naturally. Without constant signals, attention does not need to divide or react. The moon's silence supports mental simplicity. There is only presence. This absence of noise creates emotional spaciousness. Thoughts do not compete. They drift. The sun fills space with activity that must be filtered. The moon offers space that requires nothing. This contrast reinforces rest. Silence here is not isolation. It is peace. The moon does not remove connection. It removes interference. Holding this image allows awareness to settle into a quieter state where stimulation fades and stillness become comfortable. Another difference lies in exposure. One scientific fact is that astronauts must carefully limit time exposed to solar radiation during space travel. The sun's energy demands caution. The moon does not introduce additional exposure. Another scientific fact is that the moon reflects only a small fraction of sunlight, reducing intensity dramatically. Moonlight is gentle by nature. For the listener, this creates emotional permission. You do not need to protect yourself. You do not need to prepare. The moon allows presence without readiness. As you imagine standing beneath moonlight, notice how nothing needs adjustment. The environment accepts you as you are. This reduces internal tension. Silence here includes the absence of threat. Nothing approaches unexpectedly. Nothing intensifies. The moon remains unchanged. This consistency supports trust. The nervous system relaxes when the environment is predictable and quiet. The moon provides that stability. It does not intrude. It does not overwhelm. It simply exists. This gentle presence encourages the mind to release alertness. Silence becomes supportive rather than empty. It allows rest to deepen without effort. As this contrast settles, one final scientific truth completes the picture. Human biology evolved under constant solar noise during the day and lunar quiet at night. The body recognizes this pattern instinctively. Moonlight signals safety, stillness, and reduced stimulation. The moon does not compete with the sun. It offers relief from it. As you imagine the sun continuing its distant activity while the moon remains silent nearby, notice how attention naturally shifts toward calm. The moon does not ask to be noticed. It allows quiet to remain uninterrupted, carrying the mind gently forward into deeper rest without ever demanding response or awareness. The sun moves through cycles that are relatively short and active, changing in noticeable ways across human lifetimes. One clear scientific fact is that the sun follows an approximately 11-year cycle of rising and falling activity, marked by changes in sunspots, radiation output, and magnetic behavior. These shifts bring periods of calm followed by periods of increased energy, and then back again. For the listener, this rhythm can feel busy even when nothing dramatic is happening. The sun is always moving toward its next change. The moon offers a different experience of time. Another scientific fact is that the moon's phases repeat in a steady cycle of about 29.5 days, returning to the same shapes again and again without variation. New moon becomes crescent, crescent becomes full, and full gently fades back to darkness. This repetition never accelerates. It does not compress or stretch. As you imagine the moon moving through these familiar phases, notice how the pattern feels predictable and kind. Nothing surprises the body. Nothing demands adjustment. The moon does not rush through its cycle. It completes each phase fully before moving on. This slow rhythm encourages the nervous system to settle. Time begins to feel circular rather than urgent, offering rest through repetition rather than pressure. With each return, the same sequence quietly reassures the mind that nothing is late, nothing is missing, and nothing needs to be pushed forward faster than it already moves in this gentle, dependable pattern of time. Solar cycles affect space and Earth in ways that unfold quickly enough to notice within a single lifetime. One important scientific fact is that solar maximum periods increase radiation and magnetic disturbances, while solar minimum periods bring relative calm, creating noticeable contrasts over just a few years. These changes require constant monitoring and adjustment. For the listener, this can feel like living under a system that shifts often. The moon's rhythm does not behave this way. Another scientific fact is that the timing of lunar phases has remained stable for billions of years, changing so little that ancient calendars still align closely with modern measurements. The same full moon that guided early humans appears on schedule today. This long reliability removes pressure. As you imagine the moon rising night after night, notice how the body does not brace for variation. The light may wax or wane, but the timing remains steady. Each phase arrives when expected, without urgency. This creates emotional safety. The nervous system relaxes when patterns repeat without surprise. Lunar rhythm teaches that consistency does not require effort. The moon does not adjust its pace. It simply continues. This quiet repetition offers rest by reminding the mind that time can be trusted, unfolding gently without acceleration. Over countless generations, this dependable cycle has allowed living things to synchronize rest, growth, and awareness without stress, reinforcing the sense that long rhythms support calm better than rapid change ever could when observed patiently across quiet nights under familiar skies above. The sun's own rotation introduces another layer of short cycle motion. One scientific fact is that the sun rotates roughly once every 25 to 35 days, depending on latitude, meaning different regions move at different speeds. This constant internal motion creates shifting magnetic fields and surface changes. For the listener, this suggests activity layered upon activity. The sun never settles into a single pace. The moon again offers contrast. Another scientific fact is that the moon is tidally locked to Earth, rotating once on its axis for each orbit, keeping the same face toward us. This creates an unchanging relationship that feels familiar and steady. As you imagine the moon turning slowly through space, notice how nothing rushes. The same surface returns, the the same markings remain. This repetition supports memory and comfort. The body responds well to familiarity. Lunar rhythm does not ask for adaptation. It offers continuity. Each orbit completes itself fully before the next begins. There is no overlapping demand. This orderly sequence allows awareness to relax. Short cycles push attention forward. Long rhythms invite it to settle. When movement slows and repeats without variation, the mind stops tracking change and begins resting inside the pattern itself, trusting that nothing unexpected will interrupt the familiar motion unfolding quietly over time. This dependable pacing mirrors natural breathing and heart rhythms, reinforcing calm awareness by aligning thought with cycles that feel safe, complete, and comfortably predictable each night as darkness returns without urgency or demand from the sky. Lunar rhythm also shapes Earth gently through repetition rather than force. One scientific fact is that the moon's regular orbit drives ocean tides in a steady, predictable pattern that repeats daily without urgency. These movements follow timing rather than intensity. For the listener, this reinforces calm influence. The sun also affects Earth, but in faster, more variable ways. Another scientific fact is that changes in solar activity can influence upper atmosphere conditions quickly, sometimes within hours or days. These shorter cycles require response. The moon does not. Its influence arrives slowly and leaves slowly. As you imagine tides rising and falling in rhythm with the moon, notice how nothing rushes. Water moves because it always has. This long rhythm teaches patience. Lunar cycles invite trust in repetition. There is no need to monitor, no need to adjust. Each phase follows the last without overlap. This simplicity is emotionally grounding. When systems repeat without surprise, the mind releases control. Lunar rhythm does not escalate. It completes itself quietly, then begins again. This sense of return provides rest. Over centuries, these same timings guided sleep, travel, and seasonal awareness, offering humans a dependable clock that required no attention, only observation, reinforcing the comfort of long rhythms repeating without urgency or demand. This consistency quietly teaches the body that rest fits naturally within cycles that continue whether or not we hurry beneath the same moon, night after night, unbroken across generations, cultures, and long spans of time without pause or interruption ever observed. Short solar rhythms shape daily life through constant transition. One scientific fact is that Earth's rotation creates rapid shifts between daylight and darkness every 24 hours, driven by the sun's position. These changes signal activity, alertness, and response. The moon's timing moves differently. Another scientific fact is that a single lunar day, from one sunrise to the next, lasts about 29 Earth days. This stretches time into something wide and forgiving. For the listener, this difference feels profound. Lunar rhythm removes urgency by slowing transition. Night does not end quickly. Light returns gradually. As you imagine standing under a moon that rises and sets over weeks rather than hours, notice how pressure dissolves. There is no rush to act. Long rhythms allow rest to deepen. The body responds by slowing. Lunar pacing supports patience. Nothing is lost by waiting. Each phase completes itself without compression. This gentle extension of time invites stillness. Awareness no longer chases moments. It drifts within them. Solar time presses forward, while lunar time expands outward, creating space for reflection, recovery, and ease as the mind learns that longer rhythms naturally support deeper rest and emotional balance. This contrast gently trains awareness to favor patterns that move slowly enough to be felt rather than chased. Night after night, the moon repeats this lesson without effort, asking nothing while offering time to settle fully into stillness beneath its steady, unhurried return across the sky that never hurries or interrupts rest as cycles continue without demand. Long lunar rhythms also shape how the mind perceives continuity. One scientific fact is that lunar phases are visible and measurable far in advance. allowing accurate predictions centuries ahead. This reliability reduces uncertainty. Solar activity does not offer the same comfort. Another scientific fact is that solar cycles vary in intensity and timing, sometimes deviating from expected patterns. This variability keeps attention alert. The moon releases attention. Its rhythm repeats with such consistency that the mind stops tracking it. As you imagine the moon returning to the same phase again and again, notice how awareness softens. There is nothing to anticipate, nothing to prepare for. Long rhythms do not demand focus. They invite surrender. Lunar repetition creates emotional grounding by proving that stability can last longer than worry. The moon does not hurry toward change. It allows time to stretch. These stretching supports rest. Thoughts slow. Breath deepens. Attention widens. The body recognizes safety in repetition. Long rhythms remove the need for urgency, allowing the mind to rest within motion that feels familiar and complete. Over countless nights, this pattern conditions calm without instruction, reminding awareness that predictable return offers comfort greater than novelty ever could. Solar systems may surge and fluctuate, but lunar rhythm remains patient, steady, and kind to the nervous system. This quiet repetition gently guides rest forward without pushing or pulling attention away, allowing time itself to feel like a companion rather than a demand as the moon continues its calm return night after night peacefully. The sun naturally holds the center of attention in our sky and in our thinking. One clear scientific fact is that the sun contains more than 99% of the mass of the entire solar system, making everything else move in response to it. This immense presence demands awareness. Daylight follows the sun, seasons respond to it. Life adjusts around its timing and intensity. For the listener, this can feel familiar, even tiring. The sun must be noticed. The moon offers a different role. Another scientific fact is that the moon has no light of its own and never competes for dominance. It reflects quietly, appearing only when the sun allows it. This supportive position creates comfort rather than pressure. As you imagine the moon rising softly after sunset, notice how attention shifts without effort. The moon does not announce itself. It waits. It fills the background rather than commanding the foreground. This difference matters emotionally. Being central requires energy. Being supportive allows rest. The moon shows that meaning does not require visibility. It can exist quietly alongside larger forces without strain. This gentle presence encourages the mind to release the need to perform or produce. Nothing needs to be proven. The moon remains valuable without demanding attention. As this idea settles, awareness softens. The body recognizes that rest is allowed when you are not required to lead, shine, or sustain everything around you, but can simply reflect what arrives and remain comfortably present in the background. The sun's brightness forces distance and caution. One important scientific fact is that looking directly at the sun, even briefly, can damage human eyes because of its intense radiation and light output. It must be respected from afar. The moon does not carry this demand. Another scientific fact is that moonlight is reflected sunlight softened by distance and surface texture, making it safe and gentle to observe for long periods. For the listener, this contrast feels comforting. The moon does not require protection or shielding. It invites relaxed attention. As you imagine standing under moonlight, notice how the body does not tense. There is no need to squint or turn away. The moon allows presence without defense. This emotional safety matters. Constant focus on intense sources can create fatigue. Background light restores balance. The moon exists without pressure. It does not overwhelm the senses. This teaches a quiet lesson. You do not need to be intense to be meaningful. Soft presence can be enough. The moon supports the night by providing orientation and comfort without commanding effort. As awareness lingers here, the mind releases the habit of scanning for demands. There's nothing to react to, nothing to prepare for. The moon remains steady, content to remain secondary, showing that being supportive rather than central allows systems to rest and recover naturally without losing value or purpose. This realization gently invites the listener to step back emotionally, allowing rest to arrive without guilt or obligation. The sun's activity constantly shapes attention and behavior. One scientific fact is that solar radiation drives Earth's weather systems, plant growth, and daily biological rhythms, signaling when to work, move, and respond. These signals are necessary but demanding. The moon influences Earth differently. Another scientific fact is that the moon's primary physical influence is tidal movement, a slow and predictable effect that does not demand immediate reaction. For the listener, this difference feels important. One force calls for action. The other supports gentle flow. As you imagine tides rising and falling under moonlight, notice how nothing rushes. Water responds gradually. The moon does not push, it guides. This creates emotional relief. Life does not always need direction. Sometimes it only needs space to move naturally. The moon provides that space. It stays in the background, influencing without urgency. This kind of influence feels safe. It allows systems to settle rather than accelerate. Holding this image can help the mind let go of constant productivity. You are allowed to exist without driving outcomes. The moon shows that background support can be powerful without being visible. It contributes quietly, allowing balance to form over time. This perspective gently shifts awareness away from performance and toward presence. Nothing needs to be achieved in this moment. The moon continues its quiet work regardless of attention, reminding the listener that worth does not depend on being noticed or central, but on simply being steady and present where you are. The sun's position at the center of the solar system creates constant motion around it. One scientific fact is that planets, moons, and smaller bodies must continuously adjust their paths in response to the sun's gravity. This central pull organizes everything, but it also keeps everything in motion. The moon occupies a different role. Another scientific fact is that the moon orbits Earth in a stable, predictable path that has changed very little for billions of years. This reliability creates emotional grounding. As you imagine Earth and Moon moving together through space, notice how the moon does not compete with the sun's role. It does not pull attention outward. It stays close, familiar, and steady. This closeness creates comfort. The moon does not lead. It accompanies. For the listener, this offers relief. Not every role requires leadership. Some roles exist to provide steadiness and reassurance. The moon's background presence allows Earth to feel anchored rather than adrift. This emotional anchoring matters. When something remains consistently nearby, the nervous system relaxes. The moon does not disappear suddenly. It returns reliably. This repetition supports trust. The moon shows that being dependable is often more calming than being powerful. As awareness rests here, the mind releases the pressure to dominate or direct. You can remain supportive, familiar, and present without striving. The moon's quiet companionship teaches that comfort often comes from what stays rather than what shines brightest, allowing rest to deepen naturally. The sun's visibility defines daytime and commands awareness. One scientific fact is that daylight overwhelms other celestial objects, making stars and planets disappear from view. Attention narrows under brightness. The moon behaves differently. Another scientific fact is that the moon is most visible when the sun is absent or low, appearing during dusk, night, and dawn. It fills the space left behind. For the listener, this feels nurturing. The moon does not compete with light. It complements darkness. It arrives when intensity fades. This timing matters emotionally. When stimulation decreases, the mind relaxes. Moonlight supports this transition gently. It does not demand wakefulness. It allows slowing. As you imagine the moon rising into a darkening sky, notice how attention widens rather than tightens. There is room to breathe. This supportive presence encourages rest. The moon does not replace the sun. It supports what the sun leaves behind. This teaches an important emotional lesson. You do not need to replace others to matter. You can support transitions quietly. The moon's role is to soften edges, not dominate space. Holding this idea helps the listener release comparison and pressure. You are not required to be brightest. You are allowed to be present when intensity fades, offering calm where it is needed most. This perspective gently reinforces the value of background comfort over constant central attention, allowing the mind to settle more deeply into rest. The sun's existence depends on constant internal activity. One scientific fact is that nuclear fusion in the sun's core must continue without pause to maintain its structure and output. It must produce energy continuously to remain what it is. The moon requires nothing similar. Another scientific fact is that the moon is geologically quiet, with no ongoing internal energy production driving its surface. It remains stable without effort. For the listener, this contrast is deeply calming. One system must work constantly, the other simply remains. The moon does not need to sustain output to justify existence. It does not generate, it reflects. This absence of demand invites rest. As you imagine the moon drifting quietly through space, notice how nothing strains. Nothing works. Everything simply holds. This teaches a powerful emotional lesson. You do not need to produce endlessly to be valuable. Rest does not erase meaning. Background presence can be enough. The moon remains part of Earth's story without effort. It does not burn, push, or compete. It supports quietly by being what it is. As awareness settles into this understanding, pressure dissolves. The need to perform softens. You are allowed to exist without producing light or heat. Like the moon, you can reflect, accompany, and remain without urgency, allowing calm to spread naturally as the journey continues forward into deeper rest and quieter understanding. Heat has a way of quietly draining the body even when it feels familiar. One clear scientific fact is that prolonged exposure to heat increases the body's need to regulate itself, using energy to cool down through sweating and increased blood flow. This constant adjustment takes effort, even when we are not aware of it. The sun's warmth sustains life, but it also asks the body to remain active. Muscles stay slightly tense. Breathing becomes more alert. The nervous system stays engaged. The moon offers a different experience. Another scientific fact is that moonlight does not produce heat at all. It reflects sunlight without raising temperature, allowing the body to remain at rest. For the listener, this difference feels immediate. Cool light does not ask for response. It does not trigger regulation or adaptation. As you imagine moonlight resting softly on the ground, notice how the body does not brace. There is nothing to manage. This absence of demand allows fatigue to loosen rather than build. Heat often signals work, movement, and endurance. Cool light signals safety and pause. The moon's light allows the body to remain unchanged. It does not pull energy outward. It lets energy stay where it is. Holding this image helps the mind release effort. You are not required to adapt. You are allowed to remain still. The moon reminds us that rest is easier when the environment does not ask anything from us at all. The sun's heat also shapes daily biological patterns in ways that can quietly exhaust us. One important scientific fact is that sunlight suppresses melatonin production, a hormone that signals the body to prepare for sleep. This is necessary for daytime alertness, but it also keeps the nervous system active. The moon has the opposite effect. Another scientific fact is that moonlight is too dim to significantly affect melatonin levels in the human body. It allows natural sleep signals to continue uninterrupted. For the listener, this contrast feels reassuring. Moonlight does not interfere with rest. It coexists with it. As you imagine a night illuminated softly by the moon, notice how the body does not resist slowing down. There is no internal push to remain alert. The coolness of moonlight aligns with the body's desire for rest. Heat often demands attention, even subtly. It keeps awareness outward. Cool light allows awareness to turn inward. This inward shift supports calm. The moon does not compete with the body's rhythms. It follows them. Holding this idea gently encourages relaxation. You do not need to stay awake or responsive. The environment is not stimulating you. It is supporting you. The moon's presence reinforces the natural transition toward rest by allowing biological systems to operate without interruption, creating space for the mind and body to settle naturally into quieter patterns without pressure or effort. Heat also changes how the body perceives time and effort. One fascinating scientific fact is that higher temperatures increase heart rate and metabolic activity, even during rest. This subtle increase can create a sense of fatigue without movement. The moon's light does not cause this effect. Another scientific fact is that moonlight produces no measurable increase in metabolic demand, allowing the body to remain in a low-energy state. For the listener, this difference matters deeply. Heat keeps the body slightly busy. Cool light allows it to be still. As you imagine lying under moonlight, notice how breathing remains slow and unforced. There is no need to cool down. No adjustment is required. This stillness feels safe. Heat can feel comforting at first, but over time it drains reserves. Coolness restores them. The moon does not stimulate. It stabilizes. This balance supports sleep without effort. The mind does not need to manage sensations. The body does not need to respond. Everything is already comfortable. Holding this image can help the nervous system let go of vigilance. You are not in an environment that demands endurance. You are in one that allows rest. The moon's cool light creates a condition where nothing is being asked of you, allowing energy to remain stored rather than spent, supporting deep relaxation as awareness continues drifting gently forward. The sun's heat also carries variability that can subtly increase tension. One scientific fact is that solar activity fluctuates, producing solar flares and radiation bursts that affect Earth's magnetic environment. These changes are invisible but energetic. The moon offers steadiness instead. Another scientific fact is that moonlight remains consistent and predictable, following regular phases without sudden spikes in intensity. For the listener, predictability feels calming. There is no surprise in moonlight. It arrives gently and fades gently. Heat can fluctuate, requiring adjustment. Cool light remains stable. This stability supports trust. As you imagine the moon moving through its phases, notice how nothing feels urgent. The light changes slowly over days, not moments. The body can adapt without stress. This gradual rhythm allows relaxation to deepen. There is no need to prepare for sudden change. The moon's soothing light provides emotional reassurance. You can rest because nothing is about to intensify. This sense of safety matters. When the environment is predictable, the nervous system releases control. The moon's light does not surprise or demand readiness. It simply accompanies the night. Holding this image encourages mental stillness. You do not need to monitor or anticipate. The world around you is stable. The moon shows that calm environments support recovery by remaining consistent, allowing fatigue to ease naturally rather than accumulate. Heat also amplifies sensory awareness in ways that can become overwhelming. One important scientific fact is that warmth increases nerve sensitivity and skin awareness, making the body more reactive to touch and movement. Cool environments reduce this sensitivity. Moonlight, being cool and non-heating, supports this reduction naturally. For the listener, this difference feels soothing. The body does not react. It settles. As you imagine moonlight resting on your surroundings, notice how sensations soften. Nothing feels sharp or demanding. Heat sharpens perception. Cool light dulls it gently. This softening helps the mind disengage from external input. The moon does not stimulate the senses. It quiets them. This quiet allows sleep to approach without effort. You are not processing excess information. You are not responding to heightened sensation. Everything feels distant and gentle. Holding this image can help the listener release tension stored in the body. Muscles do not need to react. Skin does not need to cool or adjust. the environment is already aligned with rest. The moon's soothing presence supports this alignment quietly, without instruction or pressure, allowing the body to remain comfortable and undisturbed as awareness continues drifting deeper into calm. Heat often signals effort, endurance, and output. Cool light signals permission. One final scientific fact is that humans naturally associate cooler temperatures and dim lighting with safety and rest, a response shaped by millions of years of nighttime survival patterns. The moon aligns perfectly with this response. It offers light without heat, presence without stimulation. For the listener, this alignment feels deeply grounding. Nothing needs to be done. Nothing needs to be produced. As you imagine the moon hanging quietly in the sky, notice how the body recognizes the signal. It is time to rest. There is no danger. There is no demand. The moon does not push energy outward. It allows energy to return inward. This inward movement supports sleep naturally. The sun's heat asks for endurance. The moon's light offers relief. Holding this contrast gently allows fatigue to release instead of deepen. You are no longer under conditions that drain. You are under conditions that restore. The moon's soothing light continues quietly, supporting stillness without interruption, allowing thoughts to slow, breathing to deepen, and the body to remain comfortably at ease as the calm comparison continues unfolding without urgency. The sun is powerful in a way that cannot be safely approached, no matter how familiar it feels in the sky. One clear scientific fact is that even brief direct exposure to the sun's light can damage human eyes permanently because of the intense energy it produces. The sun demands distance. Its surface burns at millions of degrees, and even from far away, its radiation shapes everything around it. For the listener, this creates a quiet sense of tension. The sun sustains life, but it does not invite closeness. The moon offers a very different experience. Another scientific fact is that the moon can be observed safely with the naked eye at any time, without harm or strain. Its light is gentle, reflected, and calm. As you imagine looking up at the moon, notice how the body does not flinch or protect itself. There is no need to look away. This sense of safety matters. Trust grows when nothing threatens. The moon allows presence without risk. You can sit with it, study it, or ignore it without consequence. Holding this contrast gently helps the mind relax. You are no longer near something that demands caution. You are near something that allows ease. The moon's presence feels welcoming rather than overwhelming. It exists in a way that does not require defense, allowing awareness to soften naturally as attention rests without effort or concern. The danger of closeness to the sun also shapes how humans instinctively respond to it. One important scientific fact is that human skin can be burned by solar radiation in a short amount of time, triggering pain and damage as a warning signal. The body reacts quickly because the threat is real. The moon triggers no such response. Another scientific fact is that moonlight does not cause skin damage, heat stress, or radiation injury of any kind. For the listener, this contrast is calming. The moon does not activate survival instincts. There is no need to seek shade, protection, or distance. As you imagine standing beneath moonlight, notice how the body remains open rather than guarded. This openness allows relaxation to deepen. The nervous system does not prepare for harm. It rests. The moon's light feels safe because it is safe. This safety invites longer attention. You can look without strain. You can remain without urgency. The sun's power demands respect and avoidance. The moon's presence allows comfort and closeness. Holding this image can help the mind release tension built around constant vigilance. You are not near something that could hurt you. You are near something that simply exists beside you, steady and calm, allowing trust to form naturally as thoughts continue to slow and settle. The distance required by the sun also creates emotional separation that often goes unnoticed. One fascinating scientific fact is that the sun's brightness overwhelms the sky, erasing stars and soft details during the day. Its presence dominates everything. The moon does not dominate. Another scientific fact is that moonlight enhances contrast gently, allowing stars and shadows to coexist rather than disappear. For the listener, this feels emotionally safer. Nothing is erased. Nothing is overwhelmed. The moon shares the sky rather than claiming it. As you imagine the night sky under moonlight, notice how space feels open rather than compressed. There is room to breathe. The sun fills the sky with intensity. The moon leaves space for quiet. This spaciousness invites calm. You are not pushed to focus on one powerful source. You are allowed to drift. This difference reinforces emotional ease. The moon does not demand attention. It allows it. You can look, then look away without losing anything. The sun insists on being noticed while also being avoided. The moon simply accompanies the night. Holding this contrast gently allows awareness to loosen. There is no pressure to engage or withdraw. You are free to rest within a presence that remains steady without demanding reaction, letting comfort replace tension naturally over time. The way humans interact with these two bodies also reflects their emotional impact. One important scientific fact is that specialized equipment is required to safely observe the sun, even for short periods. Filters, distance, and protection are necessary. The moon requires none of this. Another scientific fact is that people across cultures have observed the moon directly for thousands of years without harm, building familiarity and comfort. For the listener, this history matters. Safety builds trust over time. The moon has always been approachable. It has never punished curiosity. As you imagine generations looking up at the same moon, notice how calm that continuity feels. There is no warning attached to looking, no risk in attention. This long-standing safety allows the mind to relax deeply. The moon becomes a companion rather than a force. The sun remains essential but distant. It works best when not approached. The moon works best when simply present. Holding this image helps shift emotional posture. You are no longer bracing. You are resting. The moon's quiet reliability supports stillness. Nothing about it demands preparation or protection. It allows closeness without consequence, encouraging the body and mind to remain open, comfortable, and at ease as attention continues drifting without urgency. The physical impossibility of approaching the sun also mirrors emotional strain. One fascinating scientific fact is that spacecraft must shield themselves heavily even at great distances from the sun to survive its heat and radiation. The moon requires no shielding. Another scientific fact is that humans have walked on the moon safely, moving slowly and calmly without danger from its presence. For the listener, this contrast is powerful. One body cannot be touched. The other can be approached gently. The moon allows closeness without harm. As you imagine standing on the moon's surface, notice how nothing presses against you. There is no heat to escape, no radiation to fear. The environment remains neutral and calm. This neutrality supports relaxation. The sun represents power that must be respected from afar. The moon represents presence that allows nearness. Holding this difference helps the mind feel safe. You are not near something that overwhelms. You are near something that allows quiet existence. This sense of safety is essential for rest. When nothing threatens, the body releases effort. The moon's gentle presence reinforces this release, allowing trust to settle deeper as thoughts slow and awareness remains comfortably grounded. As this comparison continues, one final scientific fact settles softly into place. Human eyes naturally adjust comfortably to moonlight, while sunlight forces immediate protective reactions like squinting and turning away. This difference shapes emotional response. The moon allows gentle attention without strain. For the listener, this feels deeply reassuring. You are allowed to look. You are allowed to stay. Nothing requires retreat. The moon's presence does not challenge your limits. It respects them. As you imagine the moon resting quietly in the sky, notice how the body does not resist. There is no need to shield or defend. This ease invites deeper calm. You are not confronting power. You are sharing space with something safe. The moon's light continues without urgency, offering presence that can be approached, trusted, and rested within, allowing the comparison to carry awareness forward gently, steadily, and without any need to pull away. The sun exists by consuming itself, moment by moment, in a way that feels active and demanding. One clear scientific fact is that the sun produces energy by constantly converting hydrogen into helium through nuclear fusion. This process releases enormous heat and light, but it also means the sun is slowly using up its fuel. Even though this happens over billions of years, it is still a form of steady consumption. For the listener, this can quietly feel like effort. The sun must burn continuously to remain what it is. The moon offers a contrasting presence. One equally clear fact is that the moon does not burn anything at all. It produces no energy and consumes no fuel. It is made mostly of rock and dust, shaped long ago and now largely unchanged. As you imagine the moon, notice how nothing is being used up. Nothing needs replenishing. This difference can feel deeply calming. The moon does not depend on output to exist. It endures simply by remaining. The sun shines because it must. The moon remains because it can. Holding this contrast gently invites the mind to release the idea that existence requires constant effort. Some things last not because they work, but because they are allowed to rest within their own stable form, quietly and without strain. The idea of burning fuel also carries an emotional weight that often mirrors human experience. One important scientific fact is that the sun's energy output fluctuates as part of its natural cycles, sometimes increasing and sometimes decreasing as magnetic activity rises and falls. This constant internal motion reflects a system that is always active. The moon, by contrast, shows very little internal activity today. Another fact is that most of the moon's surface has remained unchanged for billions of years, preserving ancient impact marks without weather or erosion to erase them. For the listener, this contrast can feel grounding. The moon does not react or adapt constantly. It holds its shape across time. There is no pressure to renew itself. As you imagine this timeless stone floating quietly through space, notice how different that feels from something that must constantly generate. The moon does not need cycles of productivity. It does not surge or decline. It simply endures. This endurance can feel like permission. You are not required to burn brightly to matter. You are allowed to last. The moon's presence suggests that stability can come from conserving rather than consuming, from remaining intact rather than constantly transforming, offering a soothing alternative to the idea that value comes only from output. The sun's reliance on fuel also places it firmly within time's limits. One fascinating scientific fact is that astronomers can predict the sun's life cycle, including its eventual expansion and fading, because its fuel supply follows known physical rules. The sun will change dramatically in the distant future. The moon's future, however, is far quieter. Another important fact is that the moon has no internal fuel that will suddenly alter its form. Its changes happen extremely slowly, shaped mostly by gravity rather than internal consumption. For the listener, this creates a sense of calm longevity. The moon is not on a countdown in the same way. Its existence is not defined by burning toward an endpoint. As you imagine the moon continuing its orbit unchanged while stars live and die around it, notice how steady that feels. The moon does not hurry toward transformation. It remains stone, silent, and complete. This steadiness invites the mind to rest in a longer view of time, one where endurance matters more than intensity. You do not need to rush through your energy. You can conserve it. The moon reminds us that lasting presence often comes from using less, not more, allowing calm continuity to replace urgency. Another gentle contrast appears in how these two bodies interact with their surroundings. One scientific fact is that the sun's energy constantly pushes outward, affecting planets, space weather, and even electronic systems on Earth. Its influence is active and far-reaching. The moon's influence is quieter. Another fact is that the moon affects Earth mainly through gravity, shaping tides slowly and predictably without emitting energy. For the listener, this difference feels emotionally important. One presence pushes outward, the other holds quietly. The moon does not radiate force. It exerts steady influence without consumption. As you imagine ocean tides rising and falling under the moon's pull, notice how calm that motion feels. Nothing is burned. Nothing is lost. The effect repeats without depletion. This quiet influence reinforces the idea that endurance can be powerful without being exhausting. The moon shapes its environment gently, over and over, without using itself up. Holding this image can help the mind relax around its own need to act. You can have impact without constant output. You can matter without burning through yourself. The moon's example suggests that longevity and calm are supported by restraint and patience rather than endless effort. The physical makeup of the moon also reinforces its role as timeless stone. One important scientific fact is that the moon cooled and solidified very early in its history, becoming geologically quiet compared to Earth or the Sun. Its rocks have remained stable for immense spans of time. The Sun, in contrast, is never solid. Another fact is that the Sun exists as hot plasma in constant motion, never settling into stillness. For the listener, this contrast can feel soothing. The moon embodies rest. It has already become what it will remain. There is no internal urgency driving it to change form. As you imagine touching lunar rock, ancient and unchanged, notice how solid and dependable it feels. This solidity invites trust. The moon does not need to reinvent itself. It endures as it is. This endurance offers a quiet emotional lesson. You do not need to keep transforming to be valuable. Sometimes, remaining steady is enough. The moon's timeless stone suggests that rest and stability can carry meaning across ages, allowing existence to unfold gently without constant reinvention or strain. As this contrast settles, one final scientific truth brings the theme together softly. The sun's brilliance comes from ongoing consumption, while the moon's presence comes from having already settled into rest. Both are essential, but they ask very different things of the universe. For the listener, this realization can feel deeply calming. You are not required to burn endlessly. You are allowed to endure. The moon does not shine because it tries. It shines because light reaches it. It remains stone beneath that light, unchanged and unhurried. As you hold this image, notice how the idea of longevity begins to replace urgency. Life does not always need fuel and effort. Sometimes it needs patience and stillness. The moon offers that example quietly, continuing its slow path through space, asking nothing, consuming nothing, and enduring comfortably within time as awareness remains gently engaged and at rest. The sun is a place where change happens quickly and visibly, even when viewed from far away. One clear scientific fact is that the sun regularly releases sudden bursts of energy called solar flares, which can form and fade in minutes. These events are powerful, bright, and unpredictable, driven by shifting magnetic fields inside the sun. For the listener, this kind of rapid change can feel subtly demanding. The environment never fully settles. Something is always adjusting, releasing, or reorganizing. The moon offers a very different experience. One equally clear fact is that the moon does not produce flares, eruptions, or bursts of energy. Its surface remains largely the same from one year to the next, from one century to the next. As you imagine the moon hanging quietly in the night sky, notice how little changes. Craters remain. Shadows move slowly. Nothing suddenly appears or disappears. This contrast can feel deeply grounding. The moon does not surprise the observer. It behaves predictably. Rapid change often requires attention. Gentle continuity does not. Holding this difference softly in mind allows the nervous system to relax. The moon shows that stability can exist without constant activity. It reminds us that not all systems are built on sudden events. Some endure by remaining steady, allowing time to pass without demanding reaction or response. Solar flares also remind us that the sun's activity is not evenly paced. Another scientific fact is that solar activity rises and falls over an approximately 11-year cycle, creating periods of relative calm followed by periods of intense change. During active times, flares and eruptions become more frequent. During quieter times, they subside. For the listener, this ongoing fluctuation can feel like a background restlessness. The sun never fully rests. The moon, by contrast, follows cycles that are calm and visible rather than disruptive. One important fact is that the moon's phases repeat in a steady, predictable pattern every month, without sudden jumps or surprises. Each phase arrives gently, transitions slowly, and then moves on. As you imagine the moon growing brighter and then dimmer over weeks, notice how this change feels orderly rather than urgent. Nothing spikes. Nothing collapses. The rhythm remains intact. This predictability allows the mind to relax. You do not need to prepare for sudden shifts. The moon's continuity offers reassurance. It shows that change does not have to arrive in bursts. It can unfold gradually, giving plenty of time to adjust. Holding this image gently helps replace anticipation with trust, allowing awareness to rest within patterns that repeat calmly, reliably, and without pressure. The physical effects of rapid solar change also contrast strongly with lunar consistency. One scientific fact is that solar flares can disrupt radio signals, power grids, and satellites near Earth, sometimes with little warning. These effects remind us that sudden change can ripple outward quickly. The moon creates no such disturbances. Another fact is that the moon's influence on Earth, primarily through tides, remains steady and predictable across long spans of time. High tides and low tides follow known schedules that can be calculated far in advance. For the listener, this contrast reinforces a sense of safety. One force introduces disruption. The other supports rhythm. As you imagine ocean tides responding gently to the moon's pull, notice how calm that motion feels. The water rises and falls without surprise. This regularity encourages rest. The moon's consistency does not demand vigilance. It invites trust. Rapid change often keeps the mind alert. Gentle continuity allows it to soften. The moon's influence shows that repetition can be comforting rather than boring. It reassures the body that what happened yesterday will happen again tomorrow. Holding this idea can ease tension. Not all power arrives in flashes. Some power exists in steadiness, shaping the world quietly through predictable, repeating motion. Another important difference appears in how each body reveals its changes. One scientific fact is that solar flares announce themselves dramatically, with sudden brightness and radiation that can be detected instantly. The moon's changes are subtle. Another fact is that most changes on the moon's surface happen so slowly they are almost impossible to notice without careful measurement over long periods. For the listener, this difference matters emotionally. Sudden events draw attention and demand reaction. Slow changes allow presence. As you imagine watching the moon night after night, notice how familiar it becomes. The same shapes return. The same shadows stretch and shorten. This familiarity creates comfort. The moon does not challenge expectations. It meets them. This consistency helps the mind feel grounded. There is nothing new to process urgently. Everything unfolds within known boundaries. The sun's rapid changes remind us that some environments require constant adjustment. The moon's gentle continuity suggests another way of being, one where time moves forward without insisting on constant awareness. Holding this image can help thoughts slow. You do not need to track every shift. You can trust the pattern. The moon shows that predictability can be a form of kindness, offering rest through repetition rather than stimulation. The contrast between rapid change and gentle continuity also shapes how we experience light itself. One scientific fact is that solar flares briefly increase the sun's brightness and radiation output, creating sudden peaks of energy. The moon's light never spikes. Another fact is that moonlight remains soft and consistent, changing only with phase and position. For the listener, this steadiness feels soothing. There is no glare, no sudden intensity. The moon's light does not force attention. It allows the eyes and mind to rest. As you imagine moonlight spreading quietly across a landscape, notice how it reveals without overwhelming. This calm illumination supports relaxation. The sun's flares remind us that intense energy often comes with instability. The moon's gentle glow suggests that comfort often comes from moderation. Holding this image can help the body relax into the night. There is nothing to brace against, nothing to shield from. The moon's consistency supports ease. It reinforces the idea that environments built on gentle continuity invite calm awareness, allowing rest to deepen naturally as change slows to a pace that feels safe and manageable. As this contrast settles, one final scientific truth ties these ideas together quietly. The sun's rapid changes are part of what makes it powerful and essential, while the moon's gentle continuity is part of what makes it comforting and familiar. Both play their roles, but they ask different things of the observer. For the listener, this realization can feel grounding. You are allowed to step away from rapid change. You can choose continuity. The moon offers a steady presence that does not demand response or adjustment. It continues along its path, unchanged by attention, repeating the same motions it has followed for ages. As you imagine that slow, reliable orbit, allow your thoughts to mirror it. There is no need to anticipate sudden shifts. Everything moves gently forward, guided by patterns that hold, repeat, and endure, creating a calm foundation where awareness can rest comfortably within predictability and quiet continuity. The sun has always been the engine behind our days, quietly but firmly setting the pace of life on Earth. One clear scientific fact is that sunlight triggers biological clocks in nearly every living thing, telling bodies when to wake, move, eat, and act. Morning light signals the start of activity, while its absence signals rest, creating a daily rhythm that pushes time forward. This rhythm is powerful and reliable, but it can also feel demanding because it tells us when something should happen. The sun does not simply mark time, it actively drives it, moving shadows, warming air, and urging the world into motion. For the listener, this constant forward motion can subtly translate into pressure, even when nothing urgent is happening. The moon offers a different relationship with time, one that does not push, but simply shows where we are within a cycle. One important fact is that lunar phases have been used for thousands of years as markers rather than drivers of daily life. They tell us what part of the month we are in, without telling us what we must do next. As you imagine the moon rising slowly, notice how time feels observed rather than enforced. This difference gently eases the sense of being driven, allowing awareness to rest within passing moments. Time continues, but it no longer demands speed, urgency, or constant response from the body or the mind. The moon quietly keeps count, while life is free to slow down naturally over time. Another clear contrast between the sun and the moon appears in how each shapes human schedules. One well-established fact is that solar time defines the modern day, dividing life into hours, deadlines, and routines tied directly to daylight. Workdays begin because the sun rises, and activities compress into bright hours before darkness arrives. This solar structure has brought order and productivity, but it has also created a feeling that time is something to keep up with. The sun's path across the sky creates a sense of forward momentum that rarely pauses. The moon does not divide time so sharply. One important fact is that lunar cycles stretch across weeks, not hours, offering a broader sense of passing time. A full moon does not demand action when it appears. A new moon does not require preparation. These phases arrive whether or not anyone is paying attention. For the listener, this removes the feeling of being measured. The moon marks time without slicing it into tasks. As you imagine days passing under the same lunar phase, notice how repetition feels gentle rather than restrictive. Nothing is late. Nothing is early. The cycle simply continues. This wider rhythm can feel calming because it places life within a larger frame, where missing a moment does not matter. The moon reminds us that time can be experienced as a slow progression rather than a series of checkpoints demanding constant awareness and adjustment. The way each body influences sleep further highlights this difference. One scientific fact is that sunlight suppresses melatonin, the hormone that helps the body prepare for rest. This makes the sun a powerful regulator of alertness and activity. Its presence tells the body to stay engaged. The moon does the opposite. Another well-documented fact is that low light, including moonlight, allows melatonin levels to rise naturally. Moonlight does not interrupt rest. It accompanies it. For the listener, this distinction matters deeply. One source of light pushes the body toward action, while the other allows it to slow. As you picture a night gently lit by the moon, notice how nothing demands productivity. Time feels open rather than scheduled. The moon does not shorten the night or rush the morning. It simply watches over the hours as they pass. This marking of time without interference supports relaxation. The body is allowed to follow its natural rhythm instead of responding to external cues. The moon becomes a quiet companion to rest, acknowledging the passage of time without urging movement. Holding this image can help release tension around schedules. Sleep does not need to be earned or timed perfectly. It arrives when the body is ready, guided by calm signals rather than driven commands. Another important difference lies in how humans historically related to each cycle. One fact is that ancient civilizations used the sun to organize labor, farming, and survival tasks that depended on daylight. Solar time meant preparation, urgency, and planning. The moon, however, was used for observation, storytelling, and ceremony. One historical truth is that lunar calendars tracked seasons and months without dictating daily behavior. For the listener, this contrast can feel soothing. The moon's role was never to hurry anyone. It offered orientation, not instruction. As you imagine early humans watching the moon change shape over weeks, notice how time would have felt expansive rather than compressed. There was room to pause, reflect, and wait. The moon did not signal that something must be done immediately. It simply showed where they were within a larger cycle. This gentle guidance reduced pressure. Even today, the moon retains that quality. It continues to mark time without judgment. Nothing is gained or lost if a phase is missed. This can help the mind soften its grip on clocks and deadlines. Time does not always need to be conquered. Sometimes it can be witnessed. The moon offers that perspective, reminding awareness that existence does not depend on constant motion, but on steady presence within repeating patterns. The physical motions behind these cycles reinforce the emotional experience. One scientific fact is that Earth's rotation in sunlight creates the day, a process that never stops and never slows. This motion keeps time moving forward relentlessly. The moon's orbit, however, unfolds slowly and predictably. Another fact is that the moon takes about 29 days to complete one full cycle of phases, repeating the same pattern with little variation. For the listener, this slow repetition feels reassuring. There is no acceleration. Nothing suddenly changes direction. As you imagine the moon completing its orbit, notice how time feels circular rather than linear. The end leads gently back to the beginning. This circular sense of time reduces pressure. There is no final moment to reach. Everything returns. The moon does not push time forward. It allows it to loop softly. This perspective can help the mind rest. Life does not have to be a race. It can be a series of returns. The moon's rhythm supports patience, showing that progress does not always mean moving faster. Sometimes it means moving steadily, trusting that what is past will come again in its own calm way. As these differences settle, one final fact gently completes the picture. The sun measures time by change, while the moon measures it by position. One drives action, the other observes it. For the listener, this realization offers relief. You are not required to live only by driven time. You can also live by marked time. The moon continues its quiet watch, rising and setting without expectation. It does not hurry the night or shorten the hours. As you imagine its steady presence in the sky, allow your thoughts to slow alongside it. Time continues, but it no longer presses. Moments arrive and pass without demand. The moon remains, simply marking where you are, allowing the body and mind to exist comfortably within the gentle flow of passing time. The contrast between the sun and the moon quietly mirrors something familiar in human life, without needing to point or instruct. One gentle fact is that the sun must constantly produce energy to exist as it does. Deep within it, nuclear reactions never pause, never rest, and never slow. This endless output keeps the solar system alive, but it comes with intensity and pressure. The sun cannot stop doing what it does. The moon, by contrast, produces nothing of its own. It reflects what arrives, offering light without effort or strain. For the listener, this difference can feel emotionally grounding. It introduces the idea that presence does not always require output. In modern life, productivity is often treated as proof of value, much like the sun's constant burning defines its role. Yet the moon shows another way of existing, one rooted in receiving and reflecting rather than generating. As you imagine moonlight resting softly on the ground, notice how it does not exhaust itself. It remains calm, unchanged by the act of shining. This quiet reflection invites a sense of permission. You can exist without always producing something measurable. The moon's presence is meaningful without effort, and that idea can settle gently into awareness. Nothing here demands a shift or a decision. It simply offers a comparison, allowing the listener to recognize that rest and presence have always been part of the natural order, visible in the sky every night without needing explanation or approval. Another quiet parallel appears in how each body interacts with its surroundings. One scientific fact is that the sun shapes everything around it through force, heat, and radiation. Planets respond to its energy constantly, and life on Earth organizes itself around solar output. This influence is powerful, but it also leaves little room for stillness. The moon's influence works differently. One important fact is that the moon affects Earth primarily through gravity, shaping tides in slow, predictable cycles. This influence is subtle and patient, never urgent. For the listener, this distinction feels familiar. Some influences in life push constantly, while others work quietly in the background, shaping experience without demand. The moon's way of influencing does not require attention or acknowledgement. It happens whether or not anyone notices. This can feel deeply calming. It suggests that meaningful impact does not always come from effort or visibility. As you imagine tides rising and falling under moonlight, notice how nothing rushes. The water responds gently, following a rhythm that has existed for ages. This kind of influence does not drain energy. It allows rest. Holding this image can help the mind release the idea that being impactful means being active. The moon shows that presence alone can shape the world slowly and reliably, without strain, noise, or constant exertion. The passage of time under each influence also feels different, and that difference carries into human experience. One fact is that solar time divides days into segments that often feel scarce. Morning, afternoon, and evening arrive quickly, creating a sense that something should be done before light fades. The moon measures time in broader strokes. One lunar cycle spans nearly a month, offering a wider view of passing days. For the listener, this expanded time frame can feel relieving. It reduces the sense of urgency that comes with shorter cycles. Life does not need to be resolved today. The moon allows things to unfold slowly. As you picture the moon changing shape night after night, notice how no single phase demands completion. Each stage is enough on its own. This perspective can soften the internal pressure to constantly progress. The moon does not rush toward fullness, nor does it resist fading. It simply moves through its cycle with acceptance. This quiet continuity offers a mirror for resting presence. You can exist within a phase without needing to maximize it. Time does not need to be filled. It can be inhabited. The moon's steady marking of time invites awareness to slow down and notice where it already is, rather than focusing on where it should be going next. There is also a difference in how each body responds to change. One scientific fact is that the sun experiences frequent fluctuations, including solar flares and storms that release enormous amounts of energy. These events are part of its nature, but they also introduce unpredictability. The moon, by contrast, changes very little. Another fact is that the moon's surface has remained largely the same for millions of years, shaped by slow processes rather than sudden shifts. For the listener, this stability can feel comforting. It reflects a way of being that does not react constantly to external forces. The moon absorbs change without drama. As you imagine its quiet surface, notice how nothing demands adjustment. There is no need to respond quickly or adapt urgently. This stillness offers a sense of safety. In human life, constant change often feels tied to pressure and output. The moon shows an alternative, where endurance comes from remaining steady rather than constantly adapting. This does not mean resisting change, but allowing it to arrive at a natural pace. The moon's resting presence demonstrates that longevity is supported by calm continuity. Holding this image can help the mind relax around uncertainty. You do not need to respond to every shift immediately. Some things can be allowed to settle on their own, supported by time rather than effort. Light itself carries an emotional signal that reinforces this contrast. One fact is that sunlight is bright, direct, and stimulating, triggering alertness and focus. Moonlight is softer and indirect, reflecting light without adding intensity. For the listener, this difference often feels instinctive. Moonlight invites quiet awareness rather than action. It does not demand attention. As you imagine standing under moonlight, notice how the world feels gentler. Shadows soften. Details blur slightly. This visual calm mirrors an internal one. The moon's light does not compete or overwhelm. It supports rest. This quality aligns naturally with the idea of resting presence. You do not need to stand out or shine brightly to belong. The moon's role is supportive, not central, and yet it remains deeply meaningful. This can help release the pressure to always be visible or productive. The moon's presence shows that value does not depend on intensity. It can exist quietly, reflecting what is already there, allowing both the world and the observer to remain at ease. As these parallels continue to unfold, one final fact settles gently into place. The sun and the moon are both necessary, but they ask for different things. One demands constant output to exist as it does. The other asks for nothing at all. It simply remains. For the listener, this comparison offers a quiet invitation without instruction. You are allowed to exist in either mode, and you are not required to choose permanently. Resting presence has always existed alongside active output in the natural world. The moon has never been less valuable because it does not produce its own light. It has never been pressured to become something else. As you imagine the moon hanging quietly in the sky, unchanged by expectation, allow that image to settle in. You can be present without producing. You can reflect without exhausting yourself. This understanding does not require action or judgment. It simply exists, offering a gentle sense of balance. The comparison ends not with a conclusion, but with a feeling, one of quiet permission to rest within presence, supported by a natural example that has always been there, steady, calm, and complete just as it is. As the comparisons begin to soften and fade, it feels natural to let the moon remain, quietly and without competition. One gentle fact worth holding is that when the sun sets, it does not disappear suddenly. Light lingers, colors shift slowly, and the moon often rises into a sky that is already calming. This transition mirrors the way the mind moves toward rest. There is no sharp boundary. Activity gives way to stillness gradually. The moon does not announce itself. It simply appears, steady and familiar, reflecting light that no longer needs to push or demand attention. For the listener, this moment can feel like an invitation to stop comparing and start settling. The moon does not argue its value. It does not explain its purpose. It remains unchanged, allowing its presence to be enough. As you imagine the moon holding its place in the sky, notice how the comparisons between sun and moon no longer feel necessary. The sun has done its work. The moon now holds the space that remains. This shift can feel deeply grounding. It suggests that there is a time when effort naturally steps back and reflection takes over without instruction. Nothing needs to be resolved. The moon simply continues, offering a calm endpoint where the mind can rest without needing to measure or decide anything further. Another quiet truth about the moon is how little it changes moment to moment. One scientific fact is that from one minute to the next, the moon looks almost exactly the same. Its movement is so slow it escapes notice. This lack of urgency can feel comforting at the end of a long chain of comparisons. The moon does not respond to pressure. It does not accelerate or slow based on demand. It remains steady, guided by gravity and time rather than expectation. For the listener, this steadiness can feel like permission to stop tracking progress. You do not need to watch for change. You do not need to anticipate what comes next. The moon's presence suggests that it is safe to remain where you are. As you picture moonlight resting on the ground, notice how it does not try to improve or alter what it touches. It reveals softly, then fades again without consequence. This gentle revealing can mirror the way thoughts settle when they are no longer pushed. The comparisons that filled the earlier parts of the journey now begin to dissolve naturally. There is no need to declare a winner or reach a conclusion. The moon has already shown what it offers simply by being there, steady and unbothered by the passing of time. The moon also carries a quiet sense of familiarity that feels especially grounding at the end of the journey. One important fact is that humans have looked at the same moon for all of recorded history. Civilizations have risen and faded beneath it, yet the moon has remained essentially the same. For the listener, this continuity can feel reassuring. It suggests that some things do not need to change in order to remain relevant. The moon has never needed to reinvent itself. It has never needed to prove its usefulness. Its value lies in its consistency. As you imagine generations of people looking up at the same pale light, notice how the idea stretches time gently. Your moment becomes part of something longer and calmer. This can reduce the weight of the present. Whatever feels heavy now does not need to be carried forward with effort. The moon's quiet presence offers a sense of being accompanied rather than observed. It does not demand attention, yet it remains available. This balance can help the mind loosen its grip on comparison and analysis. The sun and the moon no longer need to be weighed against each other. The moon remains simply as it is, offering a steady endpoint where thought can slow and rest without needing to continue the conversation. As the focus rests fully on the moon, its relationship with silence becomes more noticeable. One gentle fact is that the moon exists in complete silence. There is no air to carry sound, no vibration, no noise of any kind. This silence is absolute and uninterrupted. For the listener, this idea can feel deeply calming. Silence here is not emptiness. It is fullness without disturbance. The moon does not need sound to confirm its presence. It exists comfortably without feedback. As you imagine this silent world, notice how the absence of noise allows awareness to soften. There is nothing to listen for and nothing to respond to. This kind of silence supports rest because it removes the need for vigilance. Nothing is approaching. Nothing is calling for attention. The comparisons that once framed the journey now fade into this quiet background. The moon does not compete with the sun in silence. It simply embodies it. Holding this image can help the mind let go of mental noise as well. Thoughts can arrive and pass without needing to be engaged. The moon's silence offers a space where the mind does not have to perform or evaluate. It can simply exist, much like the moon itself, steady and unchanging in the dark. The moon's distance also plays a quiet role in this final settling. One scientific fact is that the moon is close enough to feel familiar, yet far enough to remain untouched. Humans can see it clearly, but most will never interact with it directly. For the listener, this distance can feel safe. The moon is present without being intrusive. It does not enter personal space or demand interaction. As you imagine the moon hanging far above, notice how its distance creates comfort rather than separation. It allows observation without involvement. This can mirror a mental state where thoughts are noticed without being pulled into them. The moon's position encourages this gentle detachment. You can see without engaging. You can be aware without effort. As the comparisons between sun and moon fade, what remains is this simple presence. The moon does not require agreement or understanding. It allows itself to be seen and then forgotten again. This quality supports drifting rather than focusing. The mind no longer needs to hold onto the details of comparison. They can loosen and slip away, leaving only the sense of a quiet companion in the sky, steady and unbothered by attention. As the journey comes to its natural close, one final feeling settles in rather than a final fact. The moon does not ask for a conclusion. It does not ask for applause or recognition. It remains, allowing everything else to fall away. For the listener, this is where rest naturally arrives. The comparisons have served their purpose and no longer need to be held. The sun's intensity, activity, and pressure have already passed below the horizon. What remains is the moon's calm reflection, steady rhythm, and quiet presence. As you imagine moonlight resting gently across a still landscape, allow your own thoughts to do the same. There is no need to continue thinking forward. You can remain here, in this steady light, for as long as you like. If you find yourself drifting, that is part of the design. If you remain awake, that is fine too. The moon does not rush you toward sleep. It simply keeps watch quietly. And as this final image lingers, you might notice that nothing else needs to be said. The moon has already offered its last word, not through sound or explanation, but through presence alone. If this gentle journey has felt comforting, you are always welcome to return. For now, you can let the comparisons fade completely, allowing the calm reflection of the moon to remain with you as you rest, breathe, and slowly drift into whatever stillness comes next.